Alright guys, so today's video probably going to be pretty interesting. We're going to look at the brand new Apple Airpods Pro. Now if you're new to the channel, I usually try to gauge everything on value. If a company is going to ask a certain price, I like to see what it is they're offering and usually try to compare it to what else is in the market. And so to start with that, the price tag on the new AirPods Pro are $250. That's already pretty steep considering the market is very strong, especially around that $100 range. But let's go ahead and check out some of the new features and what comes inside the box. Now these do have Bluetooth 5.0 and they use Apple's H1 chip, which basically gives you a fast connection within Apple's ecosystem. So if you connect to your phone, anything else that you have that's tied to your Apple account, it's going to be very easy to connect and interact with each one of those devices. So I do like that Apple has this in their device, and I think that's where a lot of value comes in with AirPods. I think a lot of people that's already into Apple's ecosystem has the phone, an iPad, a MacBook, stuff like that. This just generally makes it very easy to use, and people like to just have things be very easy to use. Now, as far as the Ipx rating goes, the Ipx rating is IPX4, which is water resistant, but it's on the lower level of water resistant. So if you are somebody that runs, exercises, jogs, anything like that where you may be outside, or if you sweat a lot, it should be able to handle it okay, but any substantial amount of water, these shouldn't hold up too well. Although I have heard where other people's original AirPods have been washed and they still work completely fine, this is just one of those that I wouldn't take any chances. Now, as far as what comes inside the box, the new thing with the AirPods Pros is Apple finally decided to add the Silicone Ear tips. Now, these are like proprietary to where they only work with AirPods because of the connection that they have, but you are getting the usual small, medium, and large, and I can easily say this in itself makes a huge improvement over the original AirPods. Now, as far as the charging cable goes, this is an interesting choice because it is a lightning cable on one side to be able to plug into the charging case to charge these, and then on the other end you have USB-C. So you're going to need to have a charging block that has USB-C input. Now, speaking of the charging cable, the battery life is another thing that to me is very interesting. As far as listening time, it's rated at about 4.5 hours. That again, to me, is on the lower end of the spectrum. I do realize that these are having to do active noise canceling technology on top of this, but they're only rating these to get you about 30 minutes more if you have your transparency mode and active noise canceling turned off. Which again, I think if you're buying these, you're not going to have one of those turned off. You're either going to have it where you can hear your surroundings, or you're going to have it where you just block out your surroundings. So go ahead and plan on getting about 4.5 hours battery life. And it also says with the charging case that you can get around 24 hours. Now again, that is actually with turning the transparency mode off or the noise canceling turned off. If you actually leave those on and charge your case, you're really going to get closer to 22 hours, which again will more than get you through a full day, and the fact that most people keep the charging case on them makes it really convenient. Now, if you do pick up your AirPods and they are dead, these do have a fast charge feature where a 5-minute charge will get you around an hour's worth of use, which again, that always comes in handy. Now, the case is a wireless charging case, so I like that that's pretty much the only option you get here, because most, especially more expensive truly wireless earbuds, that is pretty much a more common thing. So I do like that Apple included that. So now let's start to talk about some of the new features that the AirPod Pros offer. These now have active noise canceling, which is not very common when it comes to truly wireless earbuds. So this is a feature that is done, I think, very well in these. I do have the complaint that it doesn't give you levels of noise canceling. You either have all or you have none. As to where, like with Sony's WF-1000X M3s, you can go within the app and you can kind of change the different levels of noise canceling. You can have it where you want to hear more of your surroundings, more where it's focused on your traffic, or more where it's focused on dialogue. I like being able to have options instead of it being pretty much all or none. Now, the microphones on here basically uses dual mics. It uses one that's facing outwards and then one that's facing inward. And what that's kind of doing is taking those noises from the outside, blending it in with your music, and trying to find a balance to where it kind of gives you the illusion that you're not hearing anything on the outside. And again, for the most part, these do block out very well. And the fact that they're finally using these silicone ear tips is also helping with blocking out some of that outside noise. Now, another new feature with these is they have the transparency mode, which basically turns your microphones the other way and allows a lot of your outside sound to come in. And that is really convenient because I love the fact that you don't have to take these out if somebody comes to talk to you. And it basically sounds like a digital version of your surroundings, but it is extremely clear and it does work very well in these. Now, they also have a new thing that they're calling adaptive EQ. I honestly can't tell any difference here. I think maybe a little bit of volume level is going on. Now, you can go within your settings and have it to where it tests the fit of the AirPods in your ears. But again, other than telling you that it's a good seal, it's not doing anything to the sound itself. So what do these new AirPods actually do other than noise canceling and the transparency mode? Well, they took the microphones off the bottom of the stem. So now it's actually placed a little bit higher on the earbuds, and they actually now took away the touch controls and they're using more of a squeeze feature on the stem. So now you actually have to kind of put your finger behind the stem and then kind of push to get your different controls. Now this does control everything but volume control. Just like any other earbud that I review, I always have an issue with that because yes, you can say, hey, can't say your name, turn the volume up, or you can actually pull out the device and change the volume. Or if you have an Apple Watch, you can actually control the volume on that as well. But you still like to be able to have volume control on the earbuds, or at least I do. Now, the other sensor that these have in them when you take them out of your ear where it pauses your music, and when you put them back in, it will resume, works just as good as it always has. And that's one of those features I wish more truly wireless earbuds had. The microphones, even though they moved the location of these, they still seem to sound exactly the same as the original, which that's one of those things that they really didn't need to change because AirPods have always been known as having one of the best microphones. But you guys can be a judge by listening to a test here. All right, guys, so here is the mic quality from the AirPods Pro. This has always been labeled as one of the best microphones with taking calls, and with the Pro Edition, it's not really any different. And so here is the microphone with a crowd noise being played in the background, so you get an idea of what it would sound like if you took phone calls in public. So now let's talk about the sound. I always say this with every pair of truly wireless earbud that I use. When it comes down to what I'm really paying for me anyway, sound is the most important thing. But that's coming from somebody where audio is really important. And I think where a lot of people when they buy AirPods are more looking for the convenience, it may just kind of depend on what it is you want out of these. But from an audio standpoint, these are not hitting that price point. And let me explain. The fact that they added the silicone ear tips causes the better seal, it brings out more bass, but in general, this makes this a very warm sounding device, especially considering the AirPods always kind of lacked a little bit in the bass department and they were pumping out a little more treble, as to where these, in my opinion, kind of flip-flop. It's a more warmer sound. I think overall it affects the treble. I think the treble never tends to be able to balance out with the bass. I think the mids come through fine. I think vocals, even though it still has a warmer sound signature, it still comes through fine and never feels like it gets buried. As to where I honestly think the treble is getting buried quite a bit. Now, if you are somebody that listens to stuff that's heavy or stuff where there's a lot more instruments going on, the bass kind of rolls over the other two frequencies a little more than it should. Bass to me is a little bit loose. It is definitely punchy, but it doesn't have that tight punchiness. It's basically like where it hits and it resonates a little bit more, and that's where it tends to just kind of roll over some of the other frequencies. Now the mids, like I said, I don't have any problem with hearing vocals, whether it be male or female. I just notice that sometimes it feels like it's a little bit behind the bass, where the treble, that is the frequency that definitely suffers with the new AirPod Pros. There are songs that I'm used to hearing details in and songs that I'm used to hearing a little bit more clarity in, even with much cheaper truly wireless earbuds that are getting rolled over with the AirPods Pro. I feel like the overall sound signature, if you were to look at an EQ, you have your bass probably way up here. You have your mids pushed a little bit more forward here, and then your treble just kind of takes a dive. It's very interesting considering the sound signature that the original AirPods have. And I think if they would have tightened up the bass a little bit and bumped up the treble just a little bit more, this would be more than okay, even though I still think the price is pretty high. Now again, I do understand a lot of people are paying for Apple's ecosystem, and I understand that usability and just ease of use, but from a straight audio standpoint and even a noise canceling standpoint, there are some things that I have some issues with. Now, the first thing is the premium price. I just honestly think these should be under $200. Now, the noise canceling, as great as it is, I still would have liked to have seen having the ability to have different levels of noise canceling. You don't always want all, and sometimes you don't want just none. You want to be able to kind of adjust that, and some other brands offer that feature. And when it comes down to the sound is just so considering how competitive the market is right now. And then my only other two complaints is I really would like to see a little bit more battery life, and I think the Ipx rating should definitely be higher than IPX4 to at least just give you better peace of mind when you're spending this kind of money. So overall, I'm not saying it's a bad product. I think it's actually a really good product. And in my opinion, I think it's a better product than the original AirPods, but I think that this product should be priced the way the original AirPods were priced. And I just personally know from reviewing so many true wireless earbuds that there are so many better options, especially when it comes to audio. But if you're tied into Apple's ecosystem and you just like things to just work easily together, I completely understand that as well. So maybe these are worth the price tag to you. Everybody's different, I completely get that. But this is my opinion on the brand new Apple AirPods Pro. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.